So I am so pleased to be here this evening to award the President's Award of the Energy Institute. This is the most prestigious award that we give out on behalf of our global membership. So we look across everyone, we look for people who are really making a massive change. And actually, right now, we know we've just been invaded this evening by people who believe we're not changing enough. And I hope the person we're giving this award to will demonstrate to you that we are changing, and we are changing at pace, and we understand the seriousness of the challenges that we face. Now, the award itself is based on, we have a 90-year heritage of giving out awards. And this is a recognition for leadership of the future in this field. It's made to an individual who we believe will benefit society through the solutions and the relevance to the global energy challenges, climate change, and universal access to energy. Someone seen by their peers as a thought leader committed to raising standards, championing energy, and making our sector more reflective of society. As a leader who's contributed to combating climate change and improving access, our award winner is a tireless campaigner for change, leading the sustainable energy for all, furthering the pace of the Sustainable Development Goal 7 on behalf of the United Nations Secretary General. Her previous work included access on and off grid in her native Nigeria, mentoring and empowering young people, as we know is so important to our industry. Damilola Ogunbiyi, I would love to give you the President's Award. Please come up and accept this award on behalf of the Energy Institute. What would be great, and I think we've been talking about young people a lot today and the profession, how people get into this sector, because I think there's many different people who have different views of the way in. How did you get involved, and why did you make this the passion for your life?
Okay, so first, thank you for the award. It's been a very exciting evening. I'd really like to, start by thanking the Energy Institution, because it's not very often that you see women from developing countries of color being recognized in leadership roles. So when you talk about change, it is very important to me. And that leads me up to my career. I mean, I grew up in England, went to boarding school, studied engineering, started off in construction, and then I got married to a very traditional Nigerian man who said, "We're moving back." And I'm like, "No, I'm not moving back." He's like, "Yes, we're moving back." And I thought I was really independent till that point. So because I'll take your child. Okay, let's move back. When we decided to move back to Lagos in particular, I knew I wanted to do something in development. I wasn't sure what it was. My thesis in university for my master's was on how infrastructure can alleviate poverty, basically. So it wasn't looking at energy infrastructure, it was just like infrastructure as a whole. So moved back to Lagos, and I said I wanted to work in government, of which, if anybody knows Lagos, everyone thinks you're mad. Why would you go and work in government? But I understood that to make real change, especially in developing economies, you really have to be in the heart of not just policy, but delivery for millions of people. So, true story. I one day walked up to the governor of Lagos State, and if anyone knows Lagos, it's a city of over 20 million people, so the governor's like a president there. And I said, "Hi, my name is Damilola," in a very short skirt, if I recall at the time, because I was in my 20s. And I said, "I know you want to provide power for your hospitals and your schools, and I think I can do that with independent power," of which I was flung, literally by his security, to the other side of the room, of where someone caught me just before I was going to land on the floor, and said, "Don't be silly, just go away." I say this because you also have to be brave in these roles. Luckily for me, the governor called me about 2.5 weeks later and said, "Young lady, come and make a presentation to me." So I traipsed around Lagos looking for space for an IPP. I spoke to every single developer. I understood everything about power systems engineering, and I made that presentation. And he said, if you can do this, and it won't cost me any money, go ahead and do it. And the rest is history. We did about 5 IPPs in Lagos, and then I focused on renewable energy for schools and hospitals as well. I say this because you have to understand that it is so hard sometimes to do projects, but you just have to keep going. I was probably 29 at the time.
Wow. That
I headed that agency, and that is the beauty about having young people, because there's a fearlessness that I don't have now. Definitely now we got to look at protocol. What did you say? How did you say it? But before, that's how it was. Circa a few years, I was asked by the president of Nigeria to join and be his special advisor. And then again, one day someone called me and said, you're going to be the head of the Rural Electrification Agency. I'm not sure if you know about rural electrification agencies in Africa, but they're not the most glamorous places. So I cried for about a week. I wondered who I had upset in federal government. I almost used my British passport to come back. But then I was mentored, and I've had so many wonderful mentors, and said, look, if it all worked, you wouldn't be here. Like, just bear that in mind. How are you going to really transform this sector? Really proud, and Lolade is here, got about 24, 25 of what I believe is the smartest Nigerians in energy to come back and say, how are we going to provide electricity? At that time, I think we had about 85 million people without electricity, and our target was 10 million people. So we went to the World Bank, and if anybody has ever worked with the World Bank, those are 2 years of your life you cannot get back. And we said, please, can you give us some money? And basically, we were successful in negotiating 350 million for Nigeria. Then we went to AFDB, which is another year of your life you can't get back. And we got 200 million. So we had about a $500 million program for energy access, matched by the Nigerian government by another $500 million. It's important because where I come from, projects drive policy. So when you come in this world where it's because they don't have the right policy and, not tested leadership or tested models, it's like you can't really test anything until you do it. I come from a world where people said solar doesn't work. You're just like, solar, it just doesn't work, go away. You know what I mean? Or IPPs don't work, go away. It's just these set things. And I think what I've been successful in doing, because I've had so much support with so many wonderful people working with me, is just that kind of, I guess it's like disruption. So because you say it can't work is what drives me. And then, a few years after that, I got a call saying there's this UN role, of which I dropped the phone. I was like, yeah, that's how it works. Someone calls you and said, you want to work at the UN. Don't be silly. And I think they kept calling. I was like, oh, maybe I should take this seriously. So then they sent an email. I was like, oh, so this is serious. And one of the reasons why I wanted to make the switch, not because I wasn't thoroughly enjoying my role and the impact that we were having, was because I hadn't ever seen anyone who looked like me in that position in energy or in engineering or in STEM or anything like that on the global arena. Someone who was just so unapologetically African and black and female and just very, very proud of it coming on stage. And I felt I owed that to all the young women. Yeah. So they don't have to go as hard as I did because it is difficult. They are, especially if you work with literally the largest bureaucracy in Africa, there's a lot of difficult points. And I just wanted to create that pathway. And then I also wanted to bring this energy access issue to the global arena, because that's this unsexy side of climate change.
Yeah.
It isn't okay that 700 million people still don't have electricity today. Those guys don't worry about what fuel source. That's a luxury. They just want electricity. It's not okay that there are 2.4 billion people don't have access to clean cooking solutions, right? Which kills 1 million African women every single year because they're using fuels. These are the reality that we have on ground. So while here and in the developing world, you can debate these things and you can have activists, people just want power. They just want to live a dignified life. And you cannot live a dignified life without energy.
Yeah. Damilola, that is amazing. Thank you for that romp through your life, an inspirational romp. So if we bring ourselves back to today, I mean, how do you feel about the crisis and the transitions that we're seeing? Do you think we're going fast enough, too slow? Should we be listening more to the Extinction Rebellion who came and smoke bombed us earlier? Or what should we be doing? How do you feel?
I mean, we're definitely not going fast enough, but it's not just the problem of one sector. It's the problem of economies as well. I feel there's also a lot of hypocrisy in the room about how a certain economy should grow and another economy has to grow in a different way. It's almost like the mentality of, you don't have it, so just stay poor. While we continue growing and then we'll get to you later. So it doesn't make sense. So I mean, again, in sub-Saharan Africa, even people who have energy have barely 404 kilowatt hours, right? That's what, I don't know, roughly 20 times less than America. So it's the same as the American fridge. So you're born into energy poverty. Right? You have multiple generating sets if you actually have it. So I don't think people connect the fact that we all have to be in the room to solve this issue. It's not an issue over here. Climate change doesn't affect just one country, right? Yeah. And there's no world we can live within where, energy poverty can remain, but we hit our climate goals, right? So that's why gatherings like this is really, really important, to have everybody in the room working to a solution. And I say it all the time. I say, for the African continent, the energy transition is actually more energy. Do you understand that? And everyone's like, what do you mean by more energy? And that is what it actually means. You're not going to keep people at a pace of lack of development and hide under climate. It doesn't work. Climate, energy, and development have to go hand in hand, unless we would have failed. So for me, it's not about the pace. It's to recognize that there are entire sectors and billions of people that are not even in the conversation right now, because everybody is just is focused on one thing instead of how do you actually, understand what the energy transition pathway would be. And that changes for every single country. There cannot be one size to fit all. You can't do the energy transition in Nigeria and then give it to Ghana and say that's how you should develop. Even in Nigeria, the way states develop will be different. And I think that there's not enough effort being spent understanding what is really needed. And the country should also determine that. Instead, there's a lot of dictation on what sovereigns should do when you're not even there. So that's what I have a problem with.
Okay, as we go forward now, sort of what's next for you? What's next for you, and then what is your vision of where we should be going?
So I think we should obviously recognize the energy transition as an opportunity. I feel like, again, if you have, like I said, 700 million people who have no access to energy, there is that opportunity. And I don't like using leapfrog because I don't think the poorest people can leapfrog out of anything. But there is that opportunity providing that energy to be clean. Right? There is that opportunity, at least part of it, or lower carbon. There's a big opportunity also in clean cooking, but it all depends on the modeling. So we've been spending a lot of time on helping countries realize what do you have to do what does your energy transition plan look like? So I'll give you an example of my country, Nigeria. Nigerian government said to me point blank, we need to uplift them 100 million people out of poverty. We still want an industrial base, which people forget that countries still want to develop industries. And if you can do it clean, figure it out. Right? That's what they said, if it can be clean, but this is what our plan is. So you need to integrate in that plan. And what it showed clearly was that for a country like Nigeria to transition by 2060, by the way, because 2050 is not possible, it needs $1.9 trillion.
Wow.
That's the figure. And we broke it down from the transport sector, the oil and gas sector, the building sector, the transformation of just how the ease of doing business. And I don't think we're really honest with ourselves and with sovereigns of what it will take and how much it will cost. And this means perfect elections, all the policies in place, which the political economy is not like that. So that is key, helping governments understand that and then asking everybody where that money will actually really come from. The other big thing that we're going to push forward, which some people say is controversial, but I think it's really important, is African carbon credits, and how to actually utilize that as a tool to fund the transition. And we're doing a lot of work with that, and I'm happy to kind of put it on your website and share with people on how they can get involved in. And then the last thing is looking at Africa in terms of the delays we're having in the supply chain as a renewable base, at least for two pieces of equipment, which will be solar PV and lithium batteries. So it's not just an extractive continent, you actually try and produce something there. So that's what's next for the next 2 years.
Ah. So a vision of the future where Africa produces its energy, produces the supply chain for its energy, and creates a global carbon market over there. That's pretty cool. I like that. What do you think?
Got to be ambitious.
Yes. Damilola, thank you so much for coming here this evening and sharing your story and your vision. You are also, I've been told, and I'm looking at Nick over there, going to have an honorary fellowship. Is that right, Nick? Yes, please say yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Excellent. I didn't give it away without being said. So thank you so much, and we welcome you into the Energy Institute and hope you will come back and talk to us again about what you do next. Thank you.
Thank you so much.